This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's. I'm Payal Kaushik, your host for the evening. The guest for today's session is Mr. Mustahir Saeed, Development Manager RPA, Rentecol PCI, who will be taking about what it takes to make RPA projects a success in your organization. Firstly, let me tell you all about our speaker. He is ambitious with boundless energy, has strong understanding of IT technologies, acquired 10 plus years of experience in diversified fields, majorly IT automation and robotics process automation, managed multiple automation projects of various domains like logistics, insurance, sales, HR, and AP process. Now let us start the session. Over to you, Mr. Saeed.
Thank you for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let me share my screen. I think I don't have access. Okay, you're going to share that. That's good. All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank RPA School for giving me an opportunity to talk about how to make RPA success in your organization. Before I start, I just wanted to know what my audience is. Can you guys just type in the chat like what do you guys do? Are you a student? Are you a developer or an architect? You can just type in the chat box so that I'll try to make this presentation relevant to you. And while typing, you can select everyone. I don't mind. Anyone?
Yeah, sir, we have a mix of students, developers, and managers kind of thing.
Oh, all right. That's great. Okay. So I'll start with the presentation. So nowadays you might have heard like RPA is booming and everyone wants to implement RPA in their organization. And most of the companies have already implemented RPA in their organization, but most of the organization lacks the ability to make it success. In today's session, I'll be taking you through my experience of delivering an RPA project successfully. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So to start a RPA project in the organization, first of all, you'll have to set up a meeting with your business heads. That can be a regional head or a divisional head or anyone in the organization who has the ability to take the decisions for their process. And when you interact with them, you'll have to go with a presentation and you'll have to demonstrate like how RPA works and you can represent what are the use cases. And if you have developed something in the past, you can record a video of that and you can show them like how RPA works exactly. You can show that, and you can also tell them like conceptually these are software robots, and these robots are functionally trained to act as a virtual employee, and you can monitor the outcomes of the robot, and you can automate all the repetitive activities or mundane activities using the robots. So you'll have to explain them, and you'll have to get their buy-in for the RPA. And you can also show them like why RPA is required in their process. So you can mention them like you can improve the accuracy and you can gain the efficiency. The robots can work 24/7, and it doesn't take any break like humans does. And you can also talk about cost saving, and you can also talk about reduced dependency. So in reduced dependency, so uh, so once you have developed the robot, you don't require humans to perform those activities. Robot can do all those activities, and it can perform I mean, without taking any break, it can perform those activities. And usually what happens is, let's suppose there is a spike in the volume, uh, uh, and there are, I mean, one of your guy is on leave. So this is kind of a dependency on human, right? So once you implement RPA, you don't have any dependency, right? So you can explain that, and you can get their buy-in. So once you get their buy-in, can you move to the next slide? So let's suppose your business head is ready to implement the RPA in his process. So what you can do is you can share a spreadsheet with him, or any email. You can ask like how many processes are there and which can be automated. You can get the list from them, and once you get the list of the processes from them, you will have to identify like what are the best fit for the automation. So let's suppose you have received around 10 to 15 automation requests from that particular business head. You'll have to evaluate whether that particular automation is best candidate for automating the activities. So so how do you evaluate that? So you'll have to check what is the volume of that activity. Let's suppose if it is a weekly activity, or let's suppose it is a monthly activity. So I would suggest like this is not the right fit for the automation. And let's suppose if the volume is high, let's suppose on a daily basis, 5 users are performing 1500 transactions per day. So that'll be a best use case to automate that. So you can filter out those kinds of projects, and after that you can prioritize which process you are going to develop first. And before doing that, you also have to gauge the cost. When I say cost, it is the cost of development and deployment. You'll have to gauge that, and then you'll have to prioritize like which you can divide the whole project into phases as well, and you can prioritize the phases as well. Like in phase 1 we'll be completing these many functionalities, and in phase 2 we are going to cover the rest of the functionalities. So something like that, you can break that in the phases. And once your phases are divided, you can get the approval from the business head and the sponsor of the project. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is one of the key step to deliver a project. Deep dive. So in this step, what will happen is, let's suppose you have got all the approvals and all. now you have to capture end-to-end and detailed requirement from the process. So in this case, usually what happens is there will be a business analyst who will be sitting with the user, and he'll be capturing all the variations of the process, or he'll be capturing how many exceptions are there, and how to handle those exceptions. So he'll be capturing that in that. And once that part is done, you'll have to check the feasibility, and you'll have to also check the complexity of the variations. So sometimes what happens is you have got the document from the operations team, like these are the steps which we perform, but you don't know like whether that process has uh, complex tool like which you cannot automate. For example, there are scanned images are involved in that. So that particular automation, I mean, that particular thing you cannot include in the automation, because in scanned images there will be there can be a handwritten document, or when once you scan the document and you use OCR engine to extract the text from it, so accuracy will be uh, uh, pretty less in that. So you'll have to consider those things as well while you are validating the requirement. And once you gather all the requirement, and you sat with the user and you have captured all the user stories, you'll have to prepare the process description document, which is PDD. So in that you'll be capturing all the details, like there will be a screenshot and you'll be mentioning the steps which user is performing. So it'll be like an as is document, like what are the steps user is performing. You'll be making the note in the PDD. And you'll also make a note like what is the volume, what is the frequency, how many users are working, what are the salaries of that user. So you all those things you'll have to mention in that PDD. And identification of application and the system. So so this is one of the important thing while you are gathering the requirement. So uh, when I talk about the applications, there are some applications which are based on Citrix. So uh, uh, you'll have to consider those factors, like if it is a Citrix based application, then it is going to take this much time. So you'll be able to identify like what are the things, or what are the challenges you are going to face while you are developing that particular automation. So usually business analyst covers that. And also you'll have to check for the credentials or VPN, or whether that particular application is based on cloud, whether we can install RPA platform on the cloud, or we can manage that from our local system. So those factors we have to cover while we are gathering the requirement. And after once you have gathered all the requirement, you will have to do the FT saving analysis. So this is like a time and motion study. So once I mean, let's suppose there is a user and he comes in the morning and he opens an email, and he goes to a particular website, and from there he copies some transaction and he opens an email box once again, and he shares the status of those transactions which he has got from that particular website. So these are the daily activities. So to perform that end-to-end activity, how much time he is taking. And once you have covered end-to-end timing for that particular activity, you'll have to also consider the break timings and uh, other unproductive timings as well. So once you have let's suppose you have implemented that, so you'll be able to show like how much cost you have saved. So that's why it is important to do a time and motion study. And this is the next point: interact with system by performing transactions. uh, so this step is really very important. So when a business analyst gathers the requirement, he sits on the user's computer and he tries to perform some transactions. Do you know why he does that? I mean, this is the best practice which most of the business analyst follows. Anyone would like to answer in the chat box?
So, sir, I being a business analyst myself, Abhinav here, being a business analyst myself, it's okay. I would like to answer that. So, for us, the golden standard of PDD is when a developer is able to carry out all the steps in PDD without asking a BA. That means all the steps, even the keystroke level documents, have now been captured properly. Because if developer is not able to do that, without asking the questions, then it's not made, a document is not made properly. That means you're missing something there. And a robot being a very mechanical thing, it cannot deal with the errors. As a human beings, if something is small information is missing, we can instinctively figure out okay what to do. But a robot cannot do that.
Yeah, perfectly answered. And I would like to add one more point into it. So when you gather the requirement, and I mean, you have captured all the steps and all, but when you personally do it, you'll be able to identify alternate ways of doing it. So I'll give you an example of my previous project. So it was a Singapore based project, and we got a requirement from them, and they have defined 5 steps to perform that particular activity. And when we tried to automate that, we were facing some challenges to identify the elements. But when when somebody sits on that application, like business analyst, he is performing those actions, so he'll be able to identify alternate ways of doing it, right? So in my previous project, we have eliminated the existing steps, and instead of that, we have identified a new process, like new steps, through which we were able to get the results in just 2 steps. So this is the importance of performing the activities or transactions on the system with the user. And these all things are done, you'll have to define a to be process. So this happens at the start only, like there will be some architectural changes. So once you have defined everything, like these are the pieces we are going to automate, and these are the activities which will be out of scope for particular automation. So you'll be able to gauge like how the to be process is going to. So based on that, you can convey those things to the business head or the operations head, whoever is owning that activity. You can convey to him, and you need to get the sign off from him. And once you have got the sign off from on PDD, now the responsibility comes to solution architect. So what solution architect does is he'll take all the requirements from the business analyst, and he'll design a solution, and he'll define the architecture of the robotics. So he'll also define like how many robots we are going to use, what will be the timing of execution, and how we are going to store the credentials, or how we are going to import the raw data, like whether we are going to do it from the front end, or is there an alternative way to fetch the data from SQL query. So something like that, he'll discover his own way, and he'll define a structured solution, and based on that document, the developer will be able to automate the activities. So in that document, usually solution architect covers like how many processes are going to be in that particular automation, and how many objects we are going to call in those processes. So let's suppose that particular document is ready. Okay, can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So your solution, if you have any questions, I'll take that right away. Okay, can you go back to previous slide? Yeah. Do you have any questions till now, anyone? You can type that in the chat box. I'll give some time to type if anyone is typing. Otherwise, I'll continue.
So, sir, if anybody wants to, unmute yourself and ask the question, that's okay with us as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a great choice. Anyone? I think there are no questions.
No, sir,
I'll
you
move
can
to the.
continue.
Yeah. Okay. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the main stage. I mean, this is the heart of your whole and soul project. Now your solution design document is ready, and your PDD is also ready. So now this is the job of a developer to develop each and every step which is defined in the solution document. And sometimes this may happen like while gathering the requirement, there were few exceptions which business analyst has not considered, or maybe a solution architect has kept. So as a developer, it's their responsibility to inform solution architect as well as business analyst regarding those exceptions, and then they'll get in touch with the operations team and they'll get the clarification on that. And sometimes these guys, I mean, being a developer, they might face some challenges related to credentials, or they are not able to get the exact element of that particular website, or uh, let's suppose they are stuck at somewhere where they are not able to develop due to some technical challenges, let's assume. So in that case as well, they'll have to inform solution architect and the business analyst respectively. Basically, developer reports to solution architect in terms of development for that particular project. And once development is, let's suppose, halfway, or so that depends on the project. Like there are some cases where you need the test data at the start, and there are few cases where you need the test data at the end, or you may require that at the middle of your development. So for test cases, test scenarios, usually developer gets in touch with the business analyst, and he'll get the test cases from him, and then he'll do the development. Because there so why this happens is, why do you need the sample data at the start? Because there are some applications where you won't be able to perform next step. For example, I'll give you I'll share the experience which I had in my previous project. So in that, what used to happen is, you need to fetch the data from SQL table, and that transaction you'll have to search on a particular website. And if that is not available, in that case you'll have to add a customer details, and then after that they'll have to enter the contract related details. So these were the steps. So if you are going to develop such thing, so you need the test data, and so you need the test transactions as well as you need the sample account details. And and this is the one of the main point which I wanted to highlight. Whenever you are doing an development, or let's suppose you are a business analyst or you are a solution architect, you'll have to insist your developer to uh, complete the development on the staging environment or in the development environment. Because sometimes what happens is, you get the requirement and you start doing the development on production, and this I mean, if something goes wrong, this may screw the operations, and they might escalate things, and your whole project will be screwed up due to such activities. So you'll have to ensure you have a staging environment and you have the development environment for the development. And once you have completed the development, you'll have to perform the UAT, and there are various ways to perform UAT. So maybe you can share your screen and you can show them like, this is how the robot is working, and There are other ways, like you can record a video and you can directly share that video with the operations team, like this is how the robotics is going to work. And you'll also have to inform them, like what are the in scope activities and out of scope activities, so that they are not throwing any out of scope activity in the robotics queue. So this is what you have to do when you are performing the UAT. And once UAT is done, you'll have to get the sign off from your operations team, because if you don't get a sign off, you'll get the changes in the requirement. Like let's suppose today you have delivered the project. After 1 or 2 weeks, they'll come back with a different scenario, like this was the condition which was not covered in the earlier requirement. So they'll come with the change request, and it'll be really hectic for you to manage the change request as well as managing the new projects which you'll have in your hand. So sign off is mandatory when you have completed the development. Can you go to the next slide, please? Previous one. Yeah. Now your development has completed. It's time for the deployment. Before deploying anything, you'll have to do a rigorous testing or regression testing in your staging environment. So you did the UAT, so that UAT is not being done on production environment. It was happening on the staging or a development environment. And you'll have to at least perform 50 to 60 transactions in your UAT environment. Once you are sure that there are no bugs and the robot is not breaking anywhere, then you can move that automation to production. And while you are moving that robot into the production environment, you'll have to make sure that there are no dummy data, and there is no staging credentials which are mentioned in the production environment. You'll have to get the different credentials for production environment. Do you have any questions still here? Anyone?
So,
All right.
Abhinav, here one. Sorry,
Yeah.
sir. Abhinav, here one question from my side. So, as I also practice on RPA, Citrix applications are very, very difficult to deal with.
Exactly.
So, is there any strategy you recommend dealing with these applications? Because they are smooth and encapsulated, and it's just a picture you see on the screen. It's not even the real control.
Yeah, right. So there are two methods to do it. If your customer knows that you are automating few things, and let's suppose you are automating that particular process within your organization, so you can ask your IT team to install Blue Prism Automation Anywhere or UiPath, any robotics platform which you have partnered with. You can install that in that particular machine, and you can automate that activity from there itself. Second way to do it is the VPN connection. So you'll have to install VPN connection within your computer, and you can directly connect with that particular Citrix machine. So this is the second method. And third one, if let's suppose a customer is very rigid and they don't want to compromise with their security and all, and they don't want any other software to be installed on Citrix machine, then in that case you have only one option, which is screen scrapping. You'll have to match each and every image with these steps, and then you'll have to send the keys to Citrix machine. Does that answer your question, Abhinav?
Yes, and I particularly liked about the VPN this thing. That is a very good advice, I think.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very nice question. All right. Once you have configured everything, you have got the credential and everything, then it's time for the deployment. So you'll have to get the release from your staging or the development environment of your Blue Prism or UiPath. You'll have to get that release, and you'll have to import that into the production environment. Once it is ready for the deployment, you'll have to train and educate your operations team, like how let's suppose if they have any exception, or if something has happened, like a robot has processed something, then where exactly they need to report that. So there will be a separate team, there will be a support team who will be managing the support related activities. So you'll have to instruct your operations team that in case of any queries, or if you have any questions, or you are finding that robot is not performing the activities the way it should, so you can directly get in touch with the support team, and they'll do the initial analysis, and then they'll get in touch with the solution architect. In case of let's suppose if there are any changes, they'll inform the solution architect. So this is very important, that the customer should be aware, like what are the steps and how to approach when a problem occurs. So that path needs to be clear with the operations. And warranty and support. So there are various methods to handle the projects. So let's suppose if you are having a third party customer, I mean, you are not implementing RPA within your organization, you are developing something for your customer. So there are two things which happens. One is the warranty and second is the support. I mean, within the warranty, you will provide a free support, and once that warranty period is over, you'll charge for the support. Let's suppose the customer comes to you and he asks for the changes, then in that case usually company charges that customer for that development. And usually the warranty period lasts for 3 to 6 months. So within that period, they'll provide a free support, and they'll accept any change request which is coming in, and they'll make the changes. And there are two different things. One is the feature and second is the change request. So feature is something which is a new requirement. I mean, earlier that functionality was not there, but now your customer wants that to be incorporated in the robotics. So this is the new feature. And change request is something, I mean, where let's suppose earlier you were performing something, and when you went live and when you started performing the activities in the production, you have identified that this is not the right way to do it. So that will be considered as a change request. So in the existing requirement, if there is a change, that will be a change request, and that will be considered in the warranty and support period. And that's how the deployment is done. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is the summary of what we have discussed. Introduction to RPA. I mean, in this stage, you were interacting with the business head, and you got their approval to implement the RPA in their respective division or process. And after that, process discovery, where you have discovered the project, you have got 50 project requests, and from that you have shortlisted 4 to 5 projects which can be automated using your RPA tool. And then you did the deep dive, where you have identified like what are the steps involved in that, and you sat business analyst sat with the end user, and he captured all the steps and all. So that happened in the deep dive, and then you did the development and UAT, after that deployment. So this is the overall life cycle. And the one thing which I have not included in this presentation, which is monitoring and showing the visibility to upper management. So there will be a weekly presentation or monthly presentation where you'll have to show them like how many hours you are saving or how many FTs you are doing. You'll have to represent the cost benefit analysis. You'll have to show the ROI, like you have implemented RPA in your company and this is the ROI which you are achieving. And usually ROI comes after 2 to 3 years. So initially it'll work as a cost center, but once you start automating your activities and you have, let's suppose, automated 15 FTEs worth of work, then you'll be in the profit. And usually that happens after 2 years. So this is the one of the important thing. And next slide please. Yeah. This is the best practices, and this is for the development team majorly. Let's suppose you have learned something new while you were working on that project, so you'll have to share that new learning within your team, so that if any problem comes in and you are not available at that point of time, so somebody else will be able to complete that, and there will be no dependency on the user. So this is the first thing, and second one is the effectively managing change requests. Let's suppose if you are receiving n number of change requests every time, so you'll have to report that. And clear communication and handover. This part I have already covered. However, I'll try to explain that once again. Clear communication is so there are two communication. One is which is happening between support team and the customer, and second communication is within your team. Like let's suppose you are working in the rotational shift, and you have completed let's suppose module 1 and module 2, and there are a few more modules which someone else is working, and he's coming in the night shift. So you should have a mechanism where you are uh, uh, keeping the handover smooth. You can utilize any applications which are available in the market like Jira and all, where you can manage your project and you can monitor the changes and the activities which are being developed by the users. So you can utilize those tools. And credentials management, this is one of the important thing. Usually what happens is we store the credentials in your variable, and let's suppose you are developing a process, and you have stored some credentials over there. So those credentials can be misused by someone, or sometimes a user may not do it intentionally, but they might do it by mistake. But you'll have to consider that your credentials are secured and they have limited access. So let's suppose if he's a developer, he should have access only for processes and the objects. And let's suppose if you're a solution architect or a business analyst, so in case of business analyst, you'll have the access only for the dashboard. So where you'll be able to view like how many cases are being processed, and how many are falling under business exception, and how many are falling under system exception. So similar to these, you have to restrict the accesses for the business analyst, and solution architect can have all the access. And this point I think I have already covered. Clear visibility to operations team. Internal handover we have already covered. That's all from my side. I am open for any questions if you have.
Thank you so
Anyone?
much, sir.
Any questions, please? Yeah.
Now we have few questions from the audience.
Yes,
The
please.
first question is there any good strategy to do UAT?
I usually prefer video recording because this usually happens when you are trying to demo your robot, it'll break. And so let's suppose if you are doing a live UAT, so you'll have to get the specific transactions which you have processed, and you can show only those transactions. And this is the one thing. And second thing would be capture ask the operation team to share the sample transactions for each and every variations which you have captured in the PDD. So this is one of the most important thing where we miss. You have tested only two kinds of scenario, and third one you didn't get a chance, or you didn't have data to test that, and you skipped that. And this will happen in the production environment, that you ran the robot and somehow that third scenario comes in, and that will fail on the production environment, and you'll receive a lot of escalations just because of that. So it is really important that when you are doing a UAT, you need to get the sample transaction for each and every variation. Usually this is what I prefer, but there can be multiple strategies which you can prefer based on your situation. Does that answer the question?
Okay, sir. Thank you. So next
Sir,
question
Abhinav,
is,
Yes, Abhinav,
sorry,
go ahead.
just give me a minute. So, sir, really surprising because you know you are saying that ROI is coming in 2 years, and a lot of vendors go about saying like 9 months, 1 year, and stuff like that. So, is that what a huge difference between, let us say, 9 months and a 2 year ROI? So that
Usually,
was
yeah, wonderful question. I like your questions, Abhinav. So what happens is, let's suppose you have acquired, you have partnered with RPA vendor like UiPath or Blue Prism or Automation Anywhere. So you have partnered with your, I mean, partnered with the RPA platform. But what happens is you don't have a strategy. Like your sometimes what will happen is your team is not ready, or your projects are not ready, and sometimes due to lack of experience, your initial projects may get failed, or it will not give you those returns, I mean, which you were expecting while you gathered the requirements. So initially this may happen, and this takes around 6 to 9 months. And within I mean, you need to consider that your first 6 months are just uh, an experience. Like you'll get to know like how things are working, what things you need to automate. So this take usually that much time, and till the time you understand that these are the things which I am falling under, you already have incurred so much cost. Like your developers, your support team, you have already acquired the licenses, you are already investing on your servers. So this is the cost which you have already incurred, and to recover that cost it will take around 1 year, one or 1.5 year. So you'll have to consider that it is going to take at least 2 years. Then I mean, if you consider that, you'll be able to sustain RPA in your organization. Otherwise, within 6 months, CFO will decide like, no, we don't want to invest in such thing, because if we compare this cost with human, they are able to perform those activities. I mean, we are able to perform those activities with the less amount, right? So he'll cancel the fundings for your RPA division, and whole things will be scrapped. So
it's a very nice.
whenever you are planning RPA in your organization, you'll have to consider 2 years, and to get the ROI.
Right, sir. That was a really nice, revelation, and really appreciated. And one thing I noticed, sir, you talked about, process and objects. So that is Blue Prism. You were referring to Blue Prism tool.
Yes. So earlier I was working on UiPath. That's a wonderful tool, and now I have recently started working on Blue Prism. I mean, it's been 2 years I have started working on Blue Prism. So even this is a wonderful tool.
Yes, definitely. I am actually a Blue Prism guy.
Okay.
But I always struggle with UiPath in the interface because somehow I feel just Blue Prism interface so clean. It's like a Visio, but
Right.
I can't just figure out where things are in UiPath. But definitely, sir, it was a really nice and enjoyable session today, and we really gained some very nice insights. Audience, if you have had any questions at this point of time, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it directly.
yes, sir, there are a few more questions.
Sure,
Okay.
go
Shoot.
ahead.
Yes, so the next question is, does RPA really gives FTE savings as companies they try to improve process during bot implementation?
Yeah. So that depends on what process you are automating. So usually companies don't think about FT saving. Sometimes they think about efficiency gain, or sometimes they might think about process improvement. or visibility improvement. So that really depends like what exactly company wants to achieve. If they are looking out for efficiency gain, then they'll not think about the FT saving. And if they are thinking about FT savings, then the shortlisting criteria will be different. In that case, the activities will be picked like which has high volume. Like let's suppose there are 2000 transactions which are being performed by 9 employees. So they'll focus on those activities. So if they automate that particular activity, they'll be able to remove at least uh, 5 to 6 people, and they'll move it to some other department which has, more human work. They'll move them to a different department, but they'll more focus on FT saving from that particular activity. So that really depends on the objective of the organization. I think that
Okay,
answers your questions.
okay. Thank you so much, sir. So the next
Yeah.
question is, what is the best way to do UAT in RPA project?
I think
I
I've
think we
already
get
covered that. Yeah.
we have covered that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. If there are any other questions, you can ask if anybody wants to ask. Okay, then it's all for the session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining the session and telling us all valuable things. It was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mustair and Herbert. That was a wonderful presentation by you all. And thank you, audience, for making this webinar wonderful and interactive. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.